Welcome to the Co-Parenting Conversations podcast, brought to you by the Center for Divorce Education. With renowned psychologist Dr. Donald Gordon, we will delve into the complex world of co-parenting during and after divorce and separation. Join us as we explore some of the emotional, legal, and practical aspects of parental breakups, helping you navigate this transformative journey with wisdom and guidance. Whether you're currently going through a divorce, contemplating separation, or supporting a loved one in their journey, the Center for Divorce Education is here to empower you with knowledge and offer you a roadmap towards a brighter future. The information presented in this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. The presentation of this material is not intended to constitute mental health therapy or to diagnose mental health disorders. The presentation of this material is not intended to constitute legal advice. Participants are encouraged to discuss specific legal questions with a licensed attorney of their choice.
Welcome back to the Co-Parenting Conversations podcast with the Center for Divorce Education. We provide online parenting classes for divorcing and separating parents, and we know how challenging communication can be during and after separation. I'm Jamie, and I'm here with my colleague Mike, and I want to start off today with something we don't always talk about openly. When families go through separation, kids are trying to make sense of something that feels big and unsettling, and sometimes underneath everything else, there's the quiet question sitting there. Was this because of me? It's not always spoken out loud. A lot of the time it isn't, but it's there more often than we realize. Mike, why do you think kids so naturally drift in that direction?
I think it's because kids are wired to look for meaning. And when something changes in their world, especially something painful, they instinctively try to understand why it happened. Adults can step back and say, this relationship wasn't working, or we grew apart. Kids don't have that framework. They don't think in terms of adult relationship dynamics. They think in terms of what they can see and what they've experienced. So if they remember getting in trouble recently, or hearing their name during an argument, or sensing tension after a conflict about them, their mind can connect those things. Not because it's accurate, but because it feels like a logical explanation from their point of view.
Right. And developmentally, that makes sense. You know, children, especially younger ones, naturally see themselves as central in their environment. And that's not selfishness. It's just how their brains are organized. So when something major shifts, like one parent moving out or the family structure changing, they scan for their role in it. They ask themselves, even if they never say it, what did I do? Sometimes it shows up in subtle ways. They might try harder. They might promise to behave better. They might suddenly become more helpful. On the surface, that looks positive, but underneath it, there can be a belief forming that if they can just adjust themselves enough, maybe everything will go back to normal.
Right. That's where grief really complicates things. When we talk about divorce or separation, we often focus on logistics and schedules and conflict. But for kids, there's real grief. They're grieving the picture they had in their head of what their family was supposed to look like. And grief isn't neat. It moves through denial, anger, bargaining. That bargaining stage is especially important here. When a child says, I'll be good, or I won't fight with my brother anymore, it can be their way of trying to regain control. It's an attempt to undo something that feels very overwhelming. And if they believe they can undo it by changing themselves, then it's not a big leap to believe that they somehow contributed to it in the first place.
Exactly. And what makes this hard is that most parents never explicitly blame their child. So from the adult perspective, it may feel confusing. Like, we never said that. We would never say that. But kids don't need to be told directly in order to internalize something. They're picking up on tone, they're noticing stress, they're watching facial expressions, and they're filling in gaps. So the solution isn't a long explanation about adult problems. It's actually much simpler than that. It's clarity. It's looking at your child and saying calmly and directly, this is not your fault. This is something between adults. not once in a dramatic moment, but more than once, over time, in steady ways.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be a heavy conversation every time. Sometimes it's woven into ordinary moments. On the way home from school in the car, a quiet evening at home, right before bed. You might say something like, sometimes kids worry that they caused the divorce. I just want you to know that that is not what happened here. And then leave space. Don't rush to fill the silence. You don't have to over-explain. Just allow them to respond or not respond, because sometimes they're still figuring out what they believe.
And when they say things like, I'll be better, that's an opportunity. Instead of reinforcing the idea that their behavior is tied to the breakup, you gently separate the two. You might say, I love that you want to help, but this isn't something you can fix by changing yourself. That keeps their empathy intact. It honors their heart, but it removes the burden. Because that's really what we're trying to do here, lift a burden that they were never meant to carry.
Another piece that matters is how much emotional processing kids are exposed to. It's completely understandable for adults to feel hurt or frustrated. Divorce is hard. But when children become the audience for that processing, even indirectly, it can reinforce their sense that something is unstable and that they need to stabilize it. Mm-hmm. You'll sometimes see kids become hyper aware of their parents' mood. They monitor, they adjust, they try not to add more stress. That can look like maturity, but sometimes it's actually anxiety in disguise.
Right. And that's why reassurance shouldn't depend on visible distress. Some kids act out when they feel guilt. Others get very quiet and very agreeable. They try to take up less space. They try to not make the waves. So even if everything seems calm on the surface, it's still worth revisiting the message. Not in a fearful way either, not assuming they're struggling, but simply as part of helping them build a solid internal narrative. This happened because of adult reasons. You are loved, and you are not responsible for it.
For some families, it also helps when children hear these ideas in a setting designed specifically for them. Our kids class actually walks through feelings like guilt and confusion in language that makes sense at a child's level. It gives them space to understand what's normal and what isn't for them to carry. Sometimes hearing the same message from a neutral voice allows it to settle in more deeply.
Because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to protect is their identity. We don't want them growing up with a quiet belief that they break things or that relationships fall apart because they weren't good enough. That belief can shape how they see themselves for years. And the good news is, simple, consistent reassurance can prevent that. So maybe the invitation today is just this. Don't assume your child knows it's not their fault. Say it clearly, say it calmly, say it more than once, and give them the freedom to be a child and not a problem solver for adult issues. We appreciate you all for tuning in today. If you found this episode helpful, please feel free to share it with a friend, and we'll see you all next time.